Adelaide Arcade was opened in 1885 and was hailed as the most modern shopping precinct in the Southern Hemisphere. With its prominent position between Grenfell Street and Rundle Street, subsequently Rundle Mall, it has continued to be a popular shopping hub to this day. Adelaide and Gay's arcades are fine examples of the 1880s boom period. They are testimony to the period during which Rundle Street was transformed into a retail precinct of great renown. Despite modifications, changes and even a fire, both Adelaide and Gay's arcades remain true to their original ambience and style as 19th century shopping developments. Adelaide Arcade is an iconic part of the Rundle Mall streetscape. Steeped in elegance, its beauty is unrivalled and its place cemented into the architectural history of Adelaide. Whilst not an original feature of the arcade, the adjacent fountain has become an integral part of Adelaide's history. This Victorian fountain was built by Handyside Company Limited of Derby and London. It was originally located on the grounds of the now demolished Jubilee Exhibition Building on North Terrace, which was built to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the founding of South Australia. In 1908, it was gifted to the Adelaide City Council by the state government and was moved to Osmond Gardens on South Terrace. In 1976, Rundle Street was converted into a pedestrian-only Rundle Mall, and to mark the occasion, the fountain was relocated to the intersection of Rundle Mall and Gawler Place. In celebration, it was filled with champagne and officially opened by Premier Don Dunstan in front of 10,000 onlookers. As part of the 1995 Rundle Mall renovations, the fountain was moved to the front of Adelaide Arcade. And then, in 2013, when Rundle Mall was once again being revamped, there was a proposal to remove the fountain from Rundle Mall. However, swift action by Adelaide Arcade saw the gathering of 15,000 signatures in a record 10 days to save the fountain as a Rundle Mall icon. The building elevations at both Rundle Mall and Grenfell Street reflect an Italian style of architecture, with the inclusion of octagonal towers and domes. The domes are of timber frame construction with curved metal sheeting that is topped with a wrought iron crown and signature flagpole. In earlier years, the dome was even utilised for advertising by retailers. Adelaide only had two buildings with 19th century domes. The other one, on the exhibition building on North Terrace, was lost in 1962 when the building was demolished. Located at the base of the arcade's domes is the Adelaide Arcade coat of arms. At the time the arcade was built, there was much discussion about the states coming together, and several competitions were held to design a coat of arms for a federated Australia. The owners of Adelaide Arcade decided to decorate the building with the coat of arms that they believed would eventually be adopted for Australia. Whilst this design was not adopted by the Commonwealth of Australia in 1908, it still remains today proudly displayed below the domes as the Adelaide Arcade coat of arms. As soon as you enter the arcade, you can't help but be impressed with the grandeur and elegance of a bygone era. The 24 feet, at 7.3 metres, extra-wide promenade adds to the charm and characteristic air of opulence. Each entrance has the original panelled ceiling and ornate details which then open up into the splendid double-storey arcade. Originally, 3 fountains were located along the central promenade, adding to the sense of grandeur. Adelaide Arcade was designed by Withall and Wells and is the most important piece of their work to survive. Their other schemes included Charles Burke's, the Jubilee Exhibition Building and the Adelaide Club Racing Stand. When Adelaide Arcade was built in 1885, it comprised of 50 shops. The original shops would retail their wares from the ground floor, whilst their workroom on the first floor was accessed from an internal staircase. The addition of a balcony level in 1968 has grown the retailer offering to over 100 specialty stores. The original floor was composed of black and white Carrara marble and panels of encaustic tiles. In 1970, the existing tiles needed replacing due to wear, and although the owners wished to retain the old pattern, the old tiles could not be lifted. Therefore, new tiles from the Old English Tile Company that still reflected the original tiling design were laid on top of the original flooring. The original curved iron roof, windows and ventilation still remain. Special attention was given to the design of the ventilation and lighting of the arcade. A double roof was installed and still remains. This enables the hot air from the lights to be taken by a draft through the tunnel between the roofs and released via the domes. Deeply recessed panel bays of coloured glass line the roof, allowing the arcade to be flooded with natural light during the day to avoid the oppressive feeling experienced in previous arcades of the period. Whilst the original frames remain, the coloured glass has been replaced over the years with clear panes. An original design feature of the arcade was the inclusion of a spacious underground chamber that was accessed via an ornate ironwork entrance in the centre of the arcade. It is believed to have first been occupied by the Arcade Cafe refreshment room, which served tea, coffee and light luncheons. The original natural water spring used by the proprietors still remains functioning in the corner. It is likely many other businesses occupied the basement, and it was later to be used as the office of P.J. Brady Billiards, who also managed the popular Palace Billiard Hall that was also located within the arcade. It is believed the entrance to the basement was covered over during the 1968 renovations, but the entrance was recently uncovered to reveal the original ornate ironwork staircase. The original hand-painted P.J. Brady Billiard Repairs signs can still be seen at the entrance. Each entrance was protected by a veranda, which was supported by decorative iron columns, two of which are now located in the centre of the arcade for all to admire. The opening of the arcade was seen as a symbol of enterprise and confidence in the future, in a period when Rundle Street was transformed into a retail precinct of great renown. The foundation stone was laid on Wednesday the 6th of May 1885 by the Mayor of Adelaide, William Bundy Esquire, JP, in the presence of a large crowd of citizens. The Mayor formally completed the final laying of the stone by means of a silver trowel and declared the stone well and truly laid. He said it afforded him pleasure to go through this task, inasmuch as the stone was the first foundation stone of an arcade to be erected in Adelaide or in the colony of South Australia. It surprisingly took only 5 months to build and a further 2 months to occupy, with the letting and fitting out of the shops enabling Adelaide Arcade to be operational by December 1885. 200 workmen were engaged to undertake the construction under the contractor W. Pett and Sons for an estimated cost of £30,000. The speed with which the building was erected eclipsed anything previously heard of in Adelaide. Over 2 million bricks from the Metropolitan Brick Company, 50,000 square feet of glass, and 12,000 square feet of marble and tessellated paving were used. Ornamental cast iron from Messrs. Fulton & Co. was used extensively, and the marble slabs flanking the entrances were supplied by Kapunda quarries. Adelaide Arcade was officially opened on the 12th of December 1885, and Rundle Street was closed to traffic for the opening. The street was crowded with the public hoping to get a view of the ceremony as an orchestra played the Adelaide Arcade polka, composed especially for the occasion by Signor R. Squaris. The governor of the day, Sir William Robertson, arrived by horse and carriage from Government House. It was very unusual for a representative of the Queen to open a private building, but due to the grandeur of Adelaide Arcade and its significance in the colony, he agreed to do the honours. Tea was taken at the centre of the arcade, with the governor and the owners toasting the Queen. Once the formalities were over and the governor had left, the public were invited in to browse and admire the arcade. Construction of Adelaide Arcade was already underway when it was announced in August 1885 that Gay's Arcade would adjoin Adelaide Arcade to make a 100-foot, that's 30.5 metre, frontage on Twin Street. Gay's Arcade was named after Mr. Patrick Gay, who was a cabinet maker. His furniture emporium had burned down, and he asked the owners of Adelaide Arcade if he could build a new emporium and connect it into Adelaide Arcade. Although construction did not start until the August of 1885, Gay's Arcade was completed in time for the opening of both Adelaide and Gay's Arcades on the 12th of December the same year. Gay's Arcade was designed by James Cumming, who also designed the Australian Mutual Provident Building in King William Street. The construction was completed by N.W. Trudgeon for £11,000. Mr. Patrick Gay occupied the shops on one side of Gay's Arcade and utilised the whole upper floor as showrooms for his extensive cabinet and upholstery business. There are still pieces of Patrick Gay's furniture that survive today, each marked with his identifying brass plate. The arcade was also home to a wheelwright, where customers could have their horse-drawn cart wheels repaired. Over the years, Gay's Arcade has also been home to the performing arts. In the late 1800s, the German Progress Association held grand balls and other entertainment, whilst many other musicians and dance studios have called it home over the years. On August 3rd, 1980, the building caught on fire. Gay's Arcade, where the fire originated, was completely gutted, and Adelaide Arcade was extensively damaged and lost much of the original glass from England. However, some still survives on the first floor. Both Gay's and Adelaide Arcades were closed for trading for over a week, and the repairs cost over $2 million. There were only 2 injuries from the fire. A policeman was bitten by a parrot, and another was kicked by a kangaroo. These injuries occurred while the policemen were helping with the removal of animals from the pet shop that resided in Gay's Arcade. The arcade was considered extremely progressive at the time. With its response to design requirements and the use of new construction materials and techniques, it brought new and novel ideas to Adelaide. The arcade was one of the first buildings in Adelaide to use electric lighting. The power was created by a dynamo generator, which was located in an engine room originally located behind what is now the dry cleaners on the eastern side of the arcade. There were 16 electric lamps hanging throughout, including one on the outside of the balcony at each end of the building, which also aided in lighting the streets. The shops were also illuminated from the outside by ornamental gas lamps made by Messrs. Strode and Company of London. The replacement electric lamps, which now feature above the ground level shops, are heavily influenced by the original elaborate design. One of the most exotic features of Adelaide Arcade was the Turkish Baths, which occupied the southeastern corner of the arcade. The front entrance to the Turkish Baths was off Grenfell Street. The proprietors, Messrs. C. Bastard and F. Needham, were both well known to the bathing community in connection with the King William Street City Baths. The Turkish baths were lavishly fitted out with Carrara marble, enamelled iron baths and white tiles, giving it a clean and elegant appearance. Both ladies and gentlemen had a choice of warm baths for $1 and Turkish baths for 4 shillings. The balcony level takes in all the glory of this beautiful arcade. The Grenfell Street end showcases some of the most original details of the arcade. Whilst the balcony level above the shops wasn't part of the original design, the Grenfell Street end balconette was. This open upper balcony was designed as an orchestral gallery where bands played frequently and people could promenade. Still present today is the original decorative ceiling and cornicing, alongside the stunning glass doors. At the Rundle Mall end is a large enclosed space that was home to P.J. Brady's Palace Billiards Hall for many years and saw many amateur and professional competitions. Francis Clooney was an early beadle or caretaker of Adelaide Arcade. He and his wife and children all lived upstairs in what is now the management office on the eastern side. Unfortunately, his life came to a tragic and rather gruesome end on the 21st of June 1887 in the engine room for the lighting. This room was located on the ground floor near the lift entrance. It seems Mr. Clooney had been left to oversee but not touch the electric lighting apparatus, while the electrician, Mr. Harcourt, left for a brief visit to the exhibition building. Not long after this, it was noted that the electric lights suddenly went down, and when an employee of Wentz Jewellers went to investigate, he discovered Francis Clooney's mutilated, dead body entangled in the engine. There have been intermittent reports over the years of sightings, strange footsteps, objects being moved from where they belong, and other strange phenomena which cannot be explained. Many believe this is the activity of Francis Clooney, Adelaide Arcade's resident ghost. Exhibiting in the stairwell on the balcony level of Gay's Arcade to the ground floor, the free Adelaide Arcade Museum houses artefacts, traditional photographs, newspaper clippings, decadent clothing, trinkets, and even an accordion that plays the official Adelaide Arcade polka. You will discover treasures, toys, and even a whole newspaper that was discovered hidden beneath the floorboards. Rediscover a fascinating, almost forgotten world filled with stories of yesteryear that explore the interesting journey of the arcades. Since the grand beginning in 1885, Adelaide and Gay's Arcades have seen some major changes in appearance. In 1935, alterations were made in an attempt to boost trading. This saw the advent of the central booths in the modern style of the 30s and also box electric lighting above the shops. In 1968, extensive alterations occurred with the addition of a balcony walkway at the first floor level, which doubled the number of shops in both arcades. This also led to the disappearance of most of the internal stairways. To increase the space in some of the downstairs shops, mezzanines were added. And over the years, renovations have been undertaken to restore the arcades to their former 19th-century glory. Whilst heritage laws prohibit exact replication, the sensitive and considered interpretation of original features has been implemented. We hope you enjoy the Adelaide Arcade History Tour.